this big cruise ship, the engine went down on it, and they call the repairman to come out there, and he's like looking over it for like 10 minutes, and he like hits something on the engine with a hammer, and then he hands the dude the bill, and it's like $10,000 or something, and the like cruise ship owner's like, why would I pay $10,000 for you did a 10-minute job, or you hit it with a hammer, right? And the dude's like, yeah, but I knew where to hit it, right? So it's kind of the same thing with the dogs. Is like, having trainers in
caveat, we don't hit dogs with hammers.
We're not. Welcome back to Ridgeside K9 Ridgeside K9 Ec Radio.
Yeah, I still got to change the thumbnail, but
no whatever. With Mike and myself, Greg. Today we're going to be talking about a very heated topic that when it came across my feed or whatever it was, I was like, Mike, we got to do this. So we're going to be talking about our 3-week board and train programs, a scam. That's what we're talking about today, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm jumping right into it.
Let's go.
In the dog training world, there's, lessons, at-home lessons, there's facility, there's board and training, there's a lot of stuff. And, it kind of twerked me hard because that's what we do.
Yeah.
When I saw that, whatever they were talking about, I think someone was trashing another trainer in a different capacity, which is already a red flag in itself.
Yeah.
Talk politely about people and just don't talk about people that you don't like. There's no reason to like shit talk it out directly.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah. But just foreshadowing another episode. But yeah, so I saw like yada yada, 3-week board and trains being a scam, and I just wanted to do an episode today because that's not the case, or at least it's not the case in what we do, and I just want to spotlight.
In our objective opinion,
yeah,
it is not a scam.
Right. Well, because it's what we do and how we do it. The mechanics can be a scam. Your home repairman can be a scam. Like we had our HVAC fixed a couple weeks ago, and like it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
The dude could have went up there and twiddled his thumbs for an hour and like rewired.
And I don't know shit about it, so as long as it kind of works when he leaves.
Yeah, and so like that's the thing is like every field can feel scammy if like you don't know what goes into it and you're being charged a lot of money for it.
Right.
So like for dog training, I definitely understand why people could be hesitant about it, but to say that it's a scam just means that you don't know a lot about what we do. Or
what were these people like? What was their point of reference on why is it a scam?
They were talking about another dog trainer who was doing something that was very like non-believable or laughable. It was talking about like getting dogs off leash in like 30 minutes, and the dude, he's like all over Instagram, just like constantly like heel, come.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so like he was making fun of that guy and saying like, and I thought like 3-week board and trains were a scam, but like this is a new like level of scam. And I was like, hey, don't take a shot at that. If like, maybe you've had bad experiences with it, like as a trainer, of companies that do it. Like we know of companies that do 3-week board and trains that probably don't give half the product that we give. So
yeah, we sign up dogs all the time. We just got a dog in the program now that went through a 5-week board and train, and it does no shit. And we went to evaluate it, and very clearly, dog doesn't know anything. The owner doesn't know anything. Now, I'm not saying that company or whoever, most of these scammy ones are like one-off trainers,
right?
Where it's just, Pete's K9 or something like that. If there's a Pete's K9 out there watching, I doubt it. But this isn't directed at you,
right?
But it's those one-off dog trainers that word of mouth that don't actually treat it like a business or don't actually have the passion in it,
right?
And don't understand the complexity of how to run an actual business. But let's break it down. For those of you who don't know, a 3-week board and train is something where you sign up with a company, sign a contract, whatever, send your dog off to that company or that individual trainer. That trainer lives and owns and operates with that dog for 21 days or whatever it may be, even if it's at a training facility, works 24/7, 365 basically for that 7-day period or 21-day period. And then at the completion of that the company or the trainer brings the dog home and should be teaching you everything you need to know to continue that education for the dog. Right. And I think that's one of the common misconceptions is, number one, a dog isn't a robot, so to speak. So there is no like end all be all. You sign up for a 12-week training program and you're never going to have to do anything with your dog again. We just lay a foundation with obedience and manners in that 3-week program. And then we bring a dog home and teach you everything that you need to know.
Right. And I think that's like kind of the big part of it is that like it's saying that 3 weeks is too short of a time frame. And like you said, it doesn't matter if it's an 8-week program, the owner has to get the knowledge. The owner has to become the handler or become more proficient as a handler, so.
And I mean, from the work that I've done before, I've had 20-week training programs where it's just me training a specific dog for a specific group. And this dog is lights out, dialed in. That was my sole job, 40 hours a week, was to train this dog for 20 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then I turn it over to the new handler and the dog looks like trash because they're not communicating the proper way. And the dog's like, I'm 100% confused now. So it's all about meshing everybody together as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. And like one of the things with it is like the alternatives, like we were saying, if it's a 6 or an 8-week board and train program, that's going to be substantially more expensive for the client. It's like, yes, in 8 weeks, I can do more with a dog, but like we said, it's more important about, what we teach the owners, and it's more important about the owners' overall goals and ambitions. Like what I can do with a dog in 8 weeks, the owner isn't going to use half of that. Right. Like the owner doesn't need half of that standard that I would be able to implement into a dog in 8 weeks. On top of they probably can't afford that all the time consistently, so taking into consideration, price, like money kind of makes the world go around. So like it is important, that we give clients a package that, is economically sound as well as having a good, quality to it as well.
I think, and this is just me going off on a rant, and I even get flack from, our training group or, my employees. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the client can only afford X amount, mm-hmm. right? So if you can only afford to pay for 2 weeks of training and the dog realistically needs 6 to 8 weeks of training, to me, it's much better for the dog and that owner for us to do hard work for whatever they can afford. Mm-hmm. 1 hour of training for that dog is better than 0 hours. Right. 2 weeks is better than no training at all. And we just give it everything we have for that short amount of time and then dump all that knowledge into the client on what you need to do to get the dog to where you want it to be.
Right. And, like you also kind of stated there, like there is lessons, like doing 1 hour lessons as well. And, with that, again, price point, but I guess what really irked me was like the 3-week board and train is almost the perfect blend of everything. You know, like not every dog is fit for lessons. Not every client or owner is fit for lessons. Mm-hmm. Not every owner or client can afford a $6,000 8-week board and train or whatever it is. So like being able to put the package together properly. It's teach the curriculum, have the trainers in place that can actually do it, right? Like you can't just wake up, be a dog trainer one day and or decide you're going to be a dog trainer one day and get dogs to a specific point in 2 or 3 weeks, charging a specific amount and it be valuable to the owner.
Right.
Like you do have to have the experience as a trainer and a handler to be able to make it all worth it. I think that's like always one of the fundamental things in training with a dog is I'm always thinking about like, this has to be valuable for the client. Like, this dog has to meet certain standards so it's valuable enough. Like they're paying this price, would I be comfortable paying this price for this product?
Yeah.
So always wanting to get the dog to that level or standard.
And I think the knowledge that we transfer at the end of it is the more valuable part.
Right.
We have on the staff almost 200 years of experience. Mm-hmm. I didn't do any math. I just made that number up, but we have
a lot of 500.
Yeah.
1,000.
But we have a tremendous amount of experience and we've touched a lot of dogs. So like we've figured out these little nuances of like, hey, maybe this little trick works or this life hack works with this particular dog or this kind of style. So being able to transfer that over to the owner on how to manage it, how to work through it. Oh, I had this client one time, Sally, who did this in a certain situation and it worked out phenomenally. Why don't you try that? So I think that's more valuable, plus all the stuff that the group classes, and then being available, the amount of phone calls we get where, hey, I paid $5,000 to have my dog trained with this company for 4 weeks, and then I had a problem and I tried to call the trainer back and they've ghosted me. They blocked my number, saddest. Right? It's people are dumb. Yeah. Well, not the clients, but like
the training company.
Yeah, the companies that treat their client just as a monetary thing, where to us, one of the biggest things we try to do is continue the community. And this isn't a sales pitch for us, but I think anybody who is in the training game, like just because it's over, you paid for that 3 weeks of training, you still are that person invested in you. So be smart and be respectful and have like good customer service is the end of it.
Yeah. And like that also kind of leans into, when you're picking a training company, or like if you are in the market for picking a training company, is seeing what kind of follow-on support there is. Like, like are there group classes? Are there lessons? Is there a place to go? Or like, is there a, we always meet up on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Here, or is there a facility or a store kind of like we have to like seek that follow-on education? But even with what you were saying about the experience that we have, or that all the trainers have here, it's like, I don't know what you would call it, analogy or idiom, but this big cruise ship, the engine went down on it, and they call the repairman to come out there, and he's like looking over it for like 10 minutes, and he like hits something on the engine with a hammer, and then he hands the dude the bill, and it's like $10,000 or something, and the like cruise ship owner's like, why would I pay $10,000 for you did a 10-minute job, or you hit it with a hammer, right? And the dude's like, yeah, but I knew where to hit it, right? So it's kind of the same thing with the dogs, is like, having trainers in...
Caveat, we don't hit dogs with hammers.
We're not hitting the dog in the right spot. But like being able to know what to do in the right moment at the right time, I think also tends to get us to a different product in a different time frame with those dogs.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a full-time job. A lot of these other one-off trainers, or even people that are heavily invested in dog sports or whatever, like that's their passion, and that's where most of their bandwidth and energy goes to. And then, the client dogs end up being like secondary. Whereas us, it's 100% full-time job. And then even my own personal dogs sit on the back burner. And I'm not even training dogs full-time anymore. I'll do lessons here and there, but it's my dogs sit on the back burner a lot because I'm on the computer, on the phone, doing marketing, meeting up with local businesses and all that stuff. We're way off topic, but let's break it down kind of in how we structure our 3-week board and train. So when we're selling it or on the sales call, and I don't even like that word, when we're just communicating with the client while they're trying to make an investment and doing their due diligence, how we kind of structure it is it's kind of in 3 phases. Phase 1 is developing a relationship with the dog. Some dogs that can take a week, some dogs that can take 3 seconds, right? You get a happy Labrador that loves food. I got that dog hooked from the first 3 seconds that were there. Right. And then the second phase is teaching the basic obedience skills in like a classroom setting, right? So quiet, sterile environment, so it's set up for the dog to learn, teaching just a little bit of tools that we're going to use to shape the rest of the dog's life. So that's where sit, place, the fundamentals of recall, whatever, come in. And then the back half and the most valuable portion of the 3 weeks is the exposure and getting the dog out into as many different distracting environments as possible to help them generalize all this stuff. And to me, obviously we have a 2-week board and train, for cost effectiveness, whatever. I don't really like it, right? Like that's pushing the dog very quickly. It takes like a very specific dog to be successful to our standard in that 2-week period.
Right.
But the 3-week where you get that additional week of just out at restaurants, on the beach, in the hiking trails, whatever mimics the client's lifestyle, that customized, training stuff, that's really the bread and butter of what we do.
Right. And like with it in those timeframes, like it's always for us, we have a standard, like we have a personal or professional standard that where we like to get dogs to, but ultimately we are unlocking the dog's maximum or 99.9% of their maximum potential in whatever time frame we're given. You know, like if it's that lab, or if it's, you know, some hound who's not food motivated, or if it's some shepherd who's like, you know, full of anxiety, it doesn't matter what kind of dog it is.
You mean to tell me there's poorly bred German shepherds
with anxiety? Yeah. You know, like no matter what dog I get, like it's never getting them to a certain standard is big, but it's the potential that we're unlocking. Like I'm going to continue to work that dog to reach its max potential. Sometimes people will ask us, you know, like, hey, if the dog does so well by day 10, can we kind of graduate them early? Like, no, like you're paying for this time frame. I'm going to do everything, max reps, max, you know, not like overtraining where the dog's stressed out, but like training properly to where the dog is being introduced to all these different places, all these different things to continue its, you know, potential growth or whatever it is. And some dogs don't meet, you know, the best situation because like they're not the best pet dog, or they're not the best house dog breed or genetics or whatever it is, but we're always pushing that dog to be the best that they possibly can be. When it comes to standards, like the way that like I think we say we train to a certain standard, for me, I always equate it back to the military mindset of it was always sweat more in training, bleed less in war.
Yeah.
You know, so like, and like I took that very deeply. Like some dudes would like brush that off, like, oh, that's just some, you know, bullshit, like whatever. Like, no, like it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, I think that's the best thing when putting it into dogs is rep the dog out. If it's like, I know my client's never going to down their dog at Lowe's, at the registers, and walk 30 feet away. There's no reason to.
Right.
But if I can do it, then at least I know when the owner goes to self-checkout and they down their dog and they, you know, say, oh, crap, like, you know, let me grab this off the rack.
Really let me get them gummy bears right there.
Let me get a Reese's or some gummy bears. You know, like I know their dog can down 5 feet away from them in that situation if I've pushed the dog to 20 feet or 30 feet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same thing for recall reps. Same thing for like, you know, like I'm going to recall the dog from distractions in environments that I tell the owners, like, you know, like we're, you know, leash dragging or off leash healing or whatever we're doing with these dogs in environments that like I would tell the owner, like, hey, like for your skill level right now, I wouldn't advise you doing this. Like you've seen me do it, but don't think of it as impressive. Don't think of it as like, oh, that's so cool. Like I want you to focus on your skill level. I want you to focus on what you can do.
Get the fundamentals down first.
Yeah. So like that's kind of where like we have our standard, and like our standard is just to be more than an owner standard, I guess you could say. Just like be twice that of an owner standard or what an owner would use. But ultimately, like you said, it's just that time frame we have the dog and unlocking their full potential in that. So 2 weeks, just as a personal preference, I can agree. I don't really like that because I like to do more with the dog. I like, you know, the dog to, you know, increase more and more. You know, we have the dog for 33% the more time in that 3-week program. So we can do 33% more with that dog probably and building on that foundation. So like, I don't know. I was going to say.
No. So with the 3 weeks, right? Like, let's touch on the pros and cons of some of the alternatives to that. We kind of hit on shorter or longer. Like, obviously, a longer, if it was me and money was never an option, obviously I would fall in like the 6 to 8 week board and train package for a client because you can do a tremendous amount in that time frame. Even with dogs like super nervous, super scared, which most of the dogs that we train are, like unlocking that, doubling or tripling the time frame, like it'd be amazing what that dog can do. But from a business standpoint, I would have to price that way higher, so that pushes so many more clients out of our you know, potential leads because we just outbid them. In order for it to make sense for the business to be successful, you guys as trainers to be successful, like the sweet spot and where we price it seems to make the most sense. Shorter obviously sucks because it is a live animal. I can't just work, you know, 24 hours a day with the dog and it be productive. I still have a limited window where the dog is learning and capable of learning. And then I would have to stress the dog too much to where it's just going to suck. Lessons are great for I would say 1% of people.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason I say that, anybody can go to a lesson, anybody can learn from a lesson. And is there some value in it? Yes. Most of the clients that we deal with, and this is just my opinion, don't have either the time or the discipline to put in the reps that it requires for the dog to actually have lifelong change, right? You can get a sit, whatever. Most people can do that on YouTube with some hot dogs and just doing it in, their living room. But they're not going to do it. So then they come back to us the next week. I have to repeat myself. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money for the client and for them, right? The business side of me is like, I don't care. I'll take your money all day long, right? If you want to invest in it, cool, by all means. But the human side of me, like, if you're not going to do the work, I'm not going to take your money because it's literally just wasting your money. So either invest in a board and train so we can knock all these behavioral problems out, or get the dog dialed into where it needs to be, or just continue to living with the habits you've already created in your dog.
Right. And with that, like, whenever clients always ask us about like evals or meet and greets, or like when clients, want to, when they have questions about not our credibility, but when they have questions about like, oh, like, do you think you can handle this? Like, do you want to see my dog? Like, do I need to come in for an eval? Whenever it's like a board and train, unless the dog is, mauled bears and taken down big game, like if this like pity is like killing moose and stuff, like I want to see this in person. But if it's like, he nipped this, or my dog's reactive, like, I don't need to evaluate your dog. I'll meet and greet with you. But like, your dog is, I always tell clients, not that your dog isn't special to me, but I've seen your dog 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Right. Like, your dog is special to you and I'm going to treat it like family, but I have seen your dog 1,000 times. It's nothing out of the ordinary for us. Whereas for lessons, if a client's interested in doing lessons, I like doing those evals, not again for the dog themselves, but now I'm evaling the owner. Like, I know through a board and train, if you're willing to spend that money, like, I'm going to teach you what you need to know. And if you don't care about it, like on the receiving end, like some clients, like, they'll pay a lot of money, but they won't, even after getting everything that we can give to them, all the tools, all the information, they still don't put a lot into it. And like, I've made some irresponsible decisions with buying things. So like, I understand, like, if like that's
you don't say.
Yeah. So like,
every time Ryobi tools go on sale, Greg will buy them.
4 years from now, we're going to have a Ryobi sponsorship. I'm just letting you know.
There's going to be lime green mics.
All of these lights in here are going to be Ryobi lights. But for lessons, I do want to evaluate the owner, and like, I don't always say it up front, or sometimes I do, but they'll come in with their dog and I'm, maybe I'll handle their dog, or I'll watch them hold their dog, but they think I'm evaluating the dog, whereas in reality, I'm evaluating them. Yeah. Because like, I want to make sure that they are a good fit for lessons, because like, I don't want you to spend your money on something that you're not going to use. Like, if you're going to come back to me next week.
It's like an impulse buy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the things I look for, and like, I do like teaching and I like doing lessons, but as you know, like, timing is the number one thing. And there has to be a lot of coordination involved when you're dancing with like a feral dog, especially if you're trying to work through aggression stuff. And it's very hard for me to relay that information for you to process that information and then act on that information and have it have any effective meaning to the dog. Because by that time, we're 4 or 5 seconds into that message being relayed, and the dog's already done 12 other behaviors since then. So you're missing the mark. So in order to curtail that, the way I kind of do lessons is, and everybody kind of does them individually, but I'll do half the lesson basically where I'm working the dog, just especially teaching the new behaviors, because the timing is most important at that point. Get the dog to where it needs to be, or where it's easy enough to transfer over.
Let the dog feel what a leash should feel like.
Yep. And then get the client moving. And then that way it's kind of fair for the dog. But there are tons of people out here, like, you go to PetSmart, and it's one of my guilty pleasures is I'll go to PetSmart and watch their lessons and just get a kick out of it. It's just entertaining sometimes. But it's very, very hard to like coach a person to coach a dog who is uncoordinated.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't know if I've ever used or thought about the word coordination. Yeah. Like when thinking like, oh, like their leash handling skills is off. I've never really made it that like whole coordination problem, which like it truly is. Like, I always equate like dog training, like people will say like, dog training's an art, or dog training's, this and that. Like whenever I'm like vibing in training. Like I always think of like the maestros in the orchestra, like, you know, waving the wands and like, you know, conducting everything.
Yeah.
Like to me, like that's what I feel like I'm always doing, like with the leash, is like I'm always like it's a symphony of movements, you know, doing things at the right time, being able to handle that leash and have that like hand-eye coordination.
Well, I think a lot of it's all reflexive too. Like you've done so many reps where, and you're a good example of this, like you never even held a dog leash until you became a trainer. Right. So think back how uncoordinated and like, one of the analogies I always teach with is like, you look like a monkey fucking a football. I don't know why. I've never seen a monkey fuck a football. It just sounds funny.
I'm gonna find that real quick. No.
But either way, like you feel weird. And then you stop thinking about it at one point. You can feel like when you have too much tension, or you can feel the nuisance or the nuanced behaviors that you're doing, and you can correct it without even thinking about it. And an easy way to think about it too is you do a lot of shooting. I do a lot of shooting. We've been in crazy scenarios, but like anytime I'm in a violent encounter, I'm not thinking about the fundamentals of shooting at that point, because I've been hundreds of thousands of rounds in ranges and training and training and training. So I don't think about like, you know, front sight picture, rear sight picture, trigger press, reset, blah, blah, blah. Right. It just flows. I don't think about it. I'm thinking about like concealment cover. Where am I moving to next? Where's a good point to reload? Blah, blah. Then it's the same thing. Like in a dog training lesson, we're teaching them like, this is how you hold a leash. This is what leash pressure is. Do you feel the tension here? Do you feel the tension there? And the amount of times like I'll find myself even using like jargon, and I'll like tell clients without properly teaching them first, like loosen the leash. The amount of clients that just drop the leash when I say that, because I haven't said, hey, when I say loosen the leash, this is what I mean. I want you to continue to hold the leash, and I want you to make there be less pressure between your hand and the dog. I want there to be the J or the loop, or I want the snap to fall down or whatever. Right. So you have to teach like the fundamentals, stuff that we take for granted because we do it every single day, all day. It's really hard to coach all that stuff.
Right. And I mean, just if an owner has a dog that like moves to the other side, like, you know, if they're holding their dog and I'm like, all right, you know, like let's start healing, let's start walking or whatever, like get the dog to your left and start walking. Yeah. But the dog is like over there and then the leash goes behind them, and then it's like this awkward, like, how do I get the dog to, like, how do I turn around? And I'm like, just like get the dog to your left side and move and like start walking. But yeah, like it's definitely like taken for granted, like in those situations where like,
I think maybe it was you, but I was talking to somebody the other day about teaching a dog to heel on the right side. I haven't done that a lot, right? Okay. If you've ever tried to teach a dog how to heel on the right, it's awkward.
Oh, like as the trainer?
On the right side?
Yeah, like it kind of makes
and not like, you know, Thor already understands heel, right? Thor's my personal dog. Putting him on the right, like I can just do a couple like negative reinforcement drills and he'll figure it out super quick because he already understands it. But I have done a couple of training dogs where the client specifically requested that the dog be in a heel on the right side because of either like mobility issues or whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let me just try and teach it. I look like I had just started training dogs again, and I'm 20 years in the game. So for me, it was much easier to teach what I wanted on the left side and then just transition the dog on the right side. But it was kind of interesting because like then I had to go and think about like, what am I doing? And all I did was just put the dog on the other side of my body.
Yeah. And like, it actually is a really easily accountable thing. Like I'll get dogs in, you know, where owners have switched their sides. Yeah. Like the owner has switched it to the right side.
Like Zorro.
Yeah. Like Zorro. And like, I'll be healing them, you know, for boarding or whatever it is. And then I'll get like a text like, you know, hey, it's just so you know, they heel on the right. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it's not that hard to like change whatever you want to do. Like, even if your dog heels on the left and you're about to pass by an unruly dog that like you don't have enough distance to create space from, it's very easy just to take your leash,
put it on the right,
and then like have them heel pretty well, even if you've never done it before. Yeah. Like passing that should be an easy thing to do with it. But anyway, getting like
back on topic.
But I really feel like the passion behind all of that we just talked about is exactly why, you know, I took so much offense to it being called a scam. Like a scam, you know, is something that like is 100% fraudulent, right?
Yeah.
You know, like the Nairobian prince, he's going to send you $1 million.
Yeah, he's
over
stuck on an
AOL.
oil ship or whatever. Just send me 10 grand.
Yeah, like that is a scam. You know,
bro. Funny story about this, right? So my ex-wife was a cop, and she still is in Northern Virginia. This poor lady, she was doing an investigation. This elderly lady got hit by one of these scams. Paid the dude 60 grand, right? So obviously not getting that cash back. Yeah. So doing the report, she's like, hey, if he calls back, do not give him any more money. This is not legit at all. You're just being scammed. You're screwed. 2 more times. This poor lady for a total of like 100 grand. And I'm like, man, you know, from a cop perspective, we're never going to make an arrest. She's never going to see that money again.
Right.
Anyways,
that's tough.
I digress.
No, and like,
that's a scam. Like, it's just a bullshit artist.
Something that is not legitimate. It's fraudulent. Whereas the 3-week board and train, you know, like it is something. I mean, everything like that's like saying lessons are a scam. That's like saying an 8-week board and train's a scam.
Yeah.
You know, every single aspect or you know, like all mechanics are scam artists. Like no, like there are probably really good mechanics out there, or there are really good mechanics out there, and some are shady.
Yeah.
Like there are definitely shady dog trainers, you know, whether you're a lessons-based dog trainer, whether you're a board and train-based dog trainer, whether you're a facility or at home, like you can definitely be shady, not be experienced, not be professional. But to say that every 3-week board and train program is a scam, like it's simply not the case, you know.
And I think that's one of the points like that I kind of agree on is like, and I'm not saying there should be any regulation in dog training, whatever. Like it's a tough line, yeah. But anybody can make a website and call themselves a dog trainer, and they suck, or they're abusive, or they've been doing like you can be 16 years old and all of a sudden call yourself a dog trainer. And I'm not saying don't aspire to be a dog trainer, but you can just put on a website. Like I've seen very, very young dog trainers say, I've trained over 10,000 dogs. And I'm like, have you been training dogs since you were 3 years old? Because that's full of shit, right? Like, I don't even know if I've trained 10,000 dogs. And I've been doing it professionally, like balls to the walls for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of chaos.
No, I mean, I totally agree. Like, and that's where kind of it's more about the consumer needs to vet the experience.
Do your research.
Yeah, like you have to do your research on it, whether you're doing lessons, you're doing a board and train, no matter what you're doing, no matter where you're going. Like, it's just vet it and get your comfy, cozy feeling from that experience, you know. But there are definitely good board and train training, or yeah, obviously there are good board and training companies out there.
There's one that sticks out above the rest.
Yeah.
But
no, but you know, there's a ton of good ones out there. Like we follow a bunch like on social media or whatever that are doing great jobs, which, you know, is kind of the purpose behind that in the sense earlier you said you don't like the term sales call, right?
Yeah.
Like to me, the social media platforms that we use are the stand-in for that being a sales call. Like anytime, you know, Marcy like passes a client to us and, you know, like they just need some closure, like I'm like Ashley nor I are ever closing the deal on a sales call, like, and like not in a way where like we don't need dogs, but like I'm not selling to any customer or any client. Like I'm not gonna, you know, like beg you, I guess is the word to say. Like I'm not gonna beg you to train with us. Like if you have an unruly dog, I'm gonna help you trust us. Like I'm gonna show you my work. I'm gonna talk to you about like what we do, be open and honest. But like I'm not begging you for your dog. You know, if you want your dog trained by the best damn company around, then like the floor is open for you to do that, right? But like it's not a sales call. Like I'm not selling you like, hey, please buy this because X, Y, and Z. You know,
and I like the value of social media too. Is it's kind of like going to a tattoo artist.
It's the portfolio.
Yeah, and just take a look, right?
Yeah.
But the one that I take more pride in is Google, right? Because as we talked about, like I have zero control over Google whatsoever. That's the clients taking time out of their day to, you know, talk about their experience, and obviously they were motivated enough and like enthused with our performance enough
to
write it, right? Like I don't write a lot of reviews, but if I go to a restaurant, especially like a small business one, I'm not really going to give this great thing to like a main chain restaurant. I don't really care.
I don't know who like writes reviews for Walmart and Target.
Yeah, like I don't give a shit. Yeah. But like if I go to a local restaurant and they're like killing it, their service is great, I will, and I had, an exceptional time, I'll take time out of my day to write a review. So those are the ones I find most important, where if you go to like some of these other ones who don't have a Google business page, or they have like 1 or 2 reviews, or they have like a shit ton of negative reviews, like the business owner has zero control over that. I can't just say, I don't like that review, remove it, right? And kind of hide it. Google can hide, like you look at our page and we have like 200 plus 5 stars. And then Google hides probably another 200 to 300 5 stars, but they think they're scammy.
We've had a lot of clients like leave reviews, but like they've never populated or they've never generated it.
I don't understand it. Google, if you're listening, figure it out. But yeah, those are the ones we take pride in, is the Google, the client reviews.
Well, I think what you said was take a look. Like that is essentially, like if someone calls us and they're like, hey, like, like if we get past the client who is kind of in between companies or whatever, like our pitch is take a look. Like I'm not gonna fluff you up with why we're extraordinary. Just take a look.
Yeah,
like whatever the other companies told you, cool, but take a look at our stuff, and like that's gonna sell itself.
And I'm also like, beware of demo dogs too. All these companies that use like, oh, look at this, Malinois that I spent 20 grand and imported it. It's like the perfect genetic specimen.
Yeah.
And look what it can do. It can do all these tricks. Your doodle's not going to be able to do that. Or your 200-pound Ken Corso with aggression issues, we're not going to get it to that point.
Right.
Either way, we're way off topic. Let's wrap this one up.
No, yeah, for sure. That I needed to vent. I wanted to get that off my chest. I'm still hot and heavy about that. But anyway, board and train programs are not scams, but beware of certain dog training companies that, you can't vet or whatever it is. That's all I wanted to say, really.
I love it. Well, where can people find you on the websites?
rsk9nc.greg, and you can find the store at RSK9 Training Supplies.
Yeah, you can get me at Ridgeside K9 Eastern Carolina on all meta platforms, or Mike_Swarchek is my personal page. Yeah, that one's definitely less business related sometimes. Can be controversial. Yeah, but hit us up. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss episodes when they drop. Anything you want to hear about, any topics you want covered, or anything you want to call our bluff on, anything, leave it in the comments. We'll get back to you.
Yeah, remember, any video that hits 500,000 likes, we put our hands in the bear trap that Drake got caught in.
Yeah. Well, all right. I did find out that that bear trap didn't have a tag on it. So in theory, we could use the very same bear trap, because
we'll do a live podcast, 500,000 likes. Hands are going in the bear trap.
Yeah. And then hopefully we have a nurse on staff that can come fix my broken wrist.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you on the next one.
Later.